everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down below for anybody who wants to share some love. And of course, the StreamYard link is down there for anybody who wants to join the panel. And tonight, again, we're going to go over some more information on the UPU and the final protocols and their constitution. But again, we're going to go over a couple videos, like I said last night. First, I want to go over, they're just a couple shorts. So we're just going to pull them up and watch these real quick. And I'm going to speak on something here on each of them.
Shots, no tags.
That's faulty because I have shots and I have tags.
Okay, can we provide them?
No, I'm not. We'll provide it in court.
Okay. So that's where we're at right now. You can sign it that you received acknowledgement of this paperwork, the citations, or you can be arrested and then you'll go to court.
That's under threats, duress, and coercion, and they cannot force you to sign. Again, that's signing a document that has certain obligations, duties, and responsibilities, and that's under 18 U.S.C. 1589, forced labor. The use or threatened use of a law or legal system, whether civil, criminal, blah, 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 means the abuse or threatened abuse, and vice versa. The abuse or threatened abuse means the use or threatened use. So just by making that statement, I believe that's a 30-year sentence. I might be a little off on that. Maybe it's 20 or 25, but it's a pretty hefty sentence just for making that statement. Just so we're clear. That's threats, duress, and coercion. It's called, what do they call it? Extortion. You either do this, or you do this. And it involves a commercial contract by a public servant in a public trust.
But that's what I'm saying. They want to arrest me.
Because they're citations, they have to.
Yeah, but you can't. That's unlawful to arrest me.
It's not. It's actually in the law.
No, it's not. Show again where you're even required to have an identification to then force somebody into a contract that they don't want to enter. Again, it's for military necessity and it has to be required first before they can acquire property from a private being. This is what they're doing. They're trying to acquire property. That's supposed to be under military necessity only.
Can you tell me what that is?
I would have to look it up right off the bat.
I'll wait.
But you
if
can
you
look it
can.
up as well. You have a phone right there. You can look it up as well.
Because that seems criminal.
It is criminal on our side.
It is criminal on our side. See? Rightly dividing the word of truth, speaking boldly as we ought to. The weight on your side is a little outweighed by the weight on the side of truth.
That's why we're able to arrest.
Why is it criminal?
Because
I want to understand. No. But I want to understand. So we have a clear cut. So when we do go to court.
Yep. So there are certain citations that you are required to sign.
There are certain citations that you are required to sign. Not true. Again, requiring somebody to sign in a physical manner is forced labor. Again, 18 U.S.C. 1589. Now, the next one's an interesting one, and I want everybody to pay attention. It goes to origins and how these stories build and repeat. Just like we always hear, history repeats itself. No shit. Pay attention.
There's only a few real Freemasons that exist. In other words, when I say a few, I'm talking about maybe a few hundred at the top level that really know the ancient secrets. I do mean small amount of people that really house and hold the true knowledge of the ancient past at the top level Freemasons. This goes all the way back. We're talking about 30,000 plus years ago for these brick masons in ancient Kemet called the Shatu. After the Great Flood, Amun-Ra, aka Marduk, he's known as Marduk in the Bible. He's also in the Jewish Torah. Kemet, he was known as Amun-Ra. This is why people say Amen. Actually, it's to him. He actually made it a rule, a law. Had these brick masons helping rebuild the land of Khem. These brick masons had the secret knowledge of space flight, technologies, how to turn stone structures into advanced computer housing, data storage devices, as well as power generators. Like the Shatu helped Amun-Ra escape. In the last, there was a pyramid war. There were 2 pyramid wars. Escaped through a hidden passage in one of the pyramids. Before he left, he decreed to leave the kingdom to his Ra-Kam. Ra-Kam, A-A-M, translates now. Shield. Kam translates into shield. Ra, shield. Time it became Rothschilds. Starting.
And I'm not saying any of that is true, but it certainly poses, Eddie, you would have to go back and listen to it and slow it down and make those connecting dots if they're there. But it just poses something to think about, doesn't it? Have you been confused by the things they told you to remember and not do your research and see how things connect? Again, if history repeats itself, that would be both the good and the bad. And so we have to look at both sides of the track and this and that and truth and the falsities. And nobody wants to go through all that. So wouldn't it make sense to just make it easier on yourself to make sure everything that you do is true and correct? I don't know, just questioning. So let's get on to the next one. And that is the conventions and Universal Postal Convention articles again. And we're going to start out with the rules applicable in common throughout the International Postal Service. Again, it's a global postal trust services. The servicers is the Postal Service itself, and they operate in that International Global Postal Trust. 193 of them. Each country has their own postal service, their own little contract with the Constitution of the United States, or with the International Universal Postal Union. All of those other 192 constitutions are underwritings, just like an insurance contract, under the original Constitution. So Article 1 is definitions. So under Article 1, definitions, for the purposes of the convention, the following terms shall have the meanings defined below. So these are the sections under the article. And each one of these sections has a clause. And each one of these clauses you can amend with your terms that correlate. You don't want to bring controversy or dispute. You just want to bring your terms that correlate things. First one is letter post item. What is letter? Would that be the lessee or the lessor? Because what you're doing is you're letting something. It's a lease. It's a lease. It's a commercial item known as a lease, and you're posting it. You're the imposter. I'm posting. Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts and excises. Described in and conveyed under the conditions of the convention and regulations. So now we have terms and conditions. Contract terms, conditions required. It's uniform throughout all jurisdictions. In other words, it's military. One form of action, civil. 2, parcel post item. Parcel post item. And this is, again, post is going to still mean public. Anytime you post something, it's in public. When you journal something, it's according to your sojourn, and that's a private ledger of your own, where you write your own journey. You know, all the events that happened in your life, and there's no other accounting in any other value except your own. Three is EMS item. Item described in and conveyed under the conditions of the convention, regulations, and associated EMS instruments. So I'm sure they'll tell us what EMS stands for here soon, hopefully. If not, we'll look it up. Documents. A letter post, parcel post, or EMS item consisting of any piece of written, drawn, printed, or digital information, excluding objects of merchandise whose physical specifications lie within the limits specified in the regulations. So in other words, that's their parcel size. You can go through them and they'll tell you what it's going to cost to send you a parcel of this size, this weight, what the limits are. Goods. Goods, would that be like good faith? Just a question. A letter post, parcel post, or EMS item consisting of any tangible and movable object other than money, including objects of merchandise, which does not fall under the definition of documents as provided in 1.4 above, whose physical specifications lie within the limits specified in the regulations. Closed mail. Closed mail. Closed would be as in private. Labeled receptacles sealed with or without lead containing postal items. So it's still a commercial thing. But this is something interesting here, because you're all in a lab as creators, minor creators, under tutelage of angels, whether they be good angels or bad angels. Misrouted mails. Are you on the wrong path? Receptacles received at an office of exchange other than the one mentioned on the label. Personal data. Information needed to identify a postal service user. It's a usufruct system, and this is the system that you're using in the wrong capacity. Change of the address format showing a foreign entity as a third party to the Global Postal Trust services that already operates under specified contracts. And you're a third party to that as a benefactor who gives the data elements to the beneficiary, which is the record, so that the benefits can be received. Missent items. Items received at an office of exchange meant for an office of exchange in another member country. Remember, we talked about the preamble of the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, and it says, with the view of developing communications between peoples by the efficient operation of the postal services, and to contributing, that's a contribution, it's a gift, to the attainment of the noble aims of international collaboration in the cultural, social, and economic fields, the plenipotentiaries of the governments of the contracting countries have, subject to ratification, acceptance, or approval, adopted this Constitution. Pay attention again, folks. It's all about adoption and fostering good faith. So, transit charges, remuneration for services rendered by a carrier in the country. In the country. What's the country? Contracting. So are you in the contract? If you claim you are in the country, you're saying you are in the contract country. Because that's what the country is. It's the name and identities of the names and numbers of the officers, employers, employees, carriers, dutiful servants. Crossed in respect of the land. Is the United States a country? Sea and or air transit of letter post items. Sea and or air transit in respect of the land, sea, and or air transit were in the first article. The countries adopting this Constitution and an equal and balancing station of plenipotentiary powers as a country, the benefactors, the people adopting this Constitution shall form under the intergovernmental organization entitled the Universal Postal Union. That's the entitlement. So if that's the entitlement, who granted it? They are the trustee, and then they have a postal service who is a registered agent. Who are they the trustee of? Universal Postal Union is when the leaders of all the nations that are chartered as a corporate country through the UN are providing contract goods and services to the royal houses. And each year they go forth in a postal congress and grant the IMF the funding of all of this, a tithe, a gift, a percentage of the gross domestic product. The tax is already given. It's based on the labor of the people, and it is to their credit. No matter how you look at it, you are the creditors. A single postal territory for the reciprocal exchange of postal items. Freedom of transit shall be guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union Remember, the Constitution of the United States starts out to form a more perfect union. It's a labor union, subject to the conditions specified in the Acts of the Union and any additional protocols thereto. You have the ability to adopt, amend, and ratify under the conditional offer and acceptance for your plenipotentiary powers. Transit charges. Section 7, remuneration. Well, let's do it this way. So if they're going to presume that you're carrying letter post items, you have the right as an equal station for plenipotentiary powers of being a carrier to have the equal remuneration, equal consideration. In the absence of special agreement, you can make a special agreement. Remember what I said special was? That's private. You can make a private agreement, a credit agreement. The designated operator of the member country, which has made the military unit available or to which the warships or military aircraft belong, shall be liable to the designated operators concerned for the transit charges for the mails, the terminal dues, and the air conveyance dues. The military's always got the obligation and requirement. Does that make sense? Drop this in the chat. May not all make it one shot. Might have to split it in two. Yeah, split it in two, but it's all there. Posting abroad of letter post items. A designated operator shall not be bound to forward or deliver to the addressee letter post items which senders residing in the territory of its member country post or cause to be posted in a foreign country with the object of profiting by the more favorable rate conditions there. So if there's freedom of transit throughout the entire territory of the Union, that would be either domestically or foreign, abroad or domestically, on the land or across the waters or other lands. The provisions set out under 1 shall be applied without distinction to letter post items made up in the sender's country of residence and then carried across the frontier, and to letter post items made up in a foreign country. The designated operator, again, military terms, taking on a military capacity, of destination, you think you've got a destiny, may claim from the designated operator of posting payment of the internal rates. Freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. That's an internal set of boundaries for their contracts and trust operations. If the designated operator of posting, again, posting as opposed to journaling, does not agree to pay these rates within a limit set by the designated operator of destination, the latter may either return the items to the designated operator of the posting and shall be entitled to claim reimbursement of a redirection costs. Remember, everything's in error, and you're just going to give them a directive. You're going to reroute it this way so it gets accounted for appropriately and the record reflects the circulation. Or handle them in accordance with its national legislation. Again, the law is uniform throughout all jurisdictions, so that national legislation should still agree with the international treaty that they are bound under, with the international constitution that they are bound under, with the international contract that they're bound under, the charter. A designated operator shall not be bound to forward or deliver to the addressees letter post items which senders post or cause to be posted in larger quantities in a country other than the country where they reside if the amount of terminal dues, what were terminal dues? That's for the air, to be received is lower than the sum that would have been received if the mail had been posted in the country where the senders reside. Again, if there's freedom of transit, then why are there all these transit charges? Does any of this make any sense? Knowing that freedom of transit shall be guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union, subject to the conditions specified, special agreement, in the acts of the Union, the partnership of that special agreement, and any additional protocols, greater truths that you put in herein collectively acts of the Union. And when you look at this and search out the various different amendments that were made by various different countries out of those 192 countries, they create their own remedies according to their own economic environments, their own culture, their own spirituality. You can do the same thing. You can help them recognize that you're not the debtor, but you're granted a nationality of a United States citizen known as a debtor person, and you are allowed to use it for benefit. The aim of the Union shall be to secure the organization and improvement of the postal services and to promote in this sphere the development of international collaboration, not governments, but international collaboration by communicating once again with the people. With a view, that's an objective. You observe things, that's a view. To developing communications between peoples by the efficient operation of the postal services, and to contributing to the attainment of noble aims of international collaboration. Adopt and foster that. At minimum, at minimum. It's a healthy concept. Let's look at the next one. Well, let's continue on and finish this one. It says designated rate or designated operator of destination may claim from the designated operator of posting payment commensurate with the costs incurred and which may not exceed the higher of the following two amounts, either 80% of the domestic tariff. So the charge is the tax, the import-export taxes, the imposts and excises for equivalent items, or the rates applicable pursuant to Articles 29, 30.5, 30.11, 30.12, 30.13, or 31.17 as appropriate. These are all debt instruments, folks. When you learn how to put down the debt instruments and direct the credits, you get currency. You learn how to put out what you're going to put out and know that it's going to come back. It's going to come back in credit form. They get to use it in credit form. Guess what? Credit form is like perpetuity. In perpetuity. It keeps circulating around and around. Doesn't need to be charged. It circulates in credit and creates its own currency. Article 13, coincidentally, use in a usufruct of the Union's forms, unless otherwise provided by the Acts of the Union, only designated operators shall use the Union's forms and documentation for the operation of postal services. We're not providing a postal service. We're saying that we can't be excluded from postal services to speak our mind and spread our message through our express trust. We are the true benefactors. And again, it's freedom of transit throughout the entire territory of the Union. So if a fictional person can use that, then how do you expect to charge the living soul that is the true and actual bona fide, by providence of grace, the creditor of the spiritual credit, which we give credence to the Spirit? Designated operators may use the Union's forms and documentation. You don't have to be designated. You don't have to be an operator. You conduct your own affairs. It's electrical conductivity. And you do so as a profit unto the nations. Kind of like a capacitor that has extra energy and it's overflowing. Of the extraterritorial, not the special maritime territorial, but extraterritorial, outside of it. Offices of exchange, as well as international mail processing centers established by designated operators outside their respective national territory. As further defined in paragraph 6, in order to facilitate, that's that face, got to have an ID, the operation of the aforementioned postal services and exchange of postal items. The exercise of the possibility outlined in paragraph 2 shall be subject to the national legislation or policy of the member country or territory in which the ETOE or IMPC is established. For them to have a post, it's a fictional post, and so they have to establish it. This means it has to be staked into the ground. It has to be solid and stable. Your post is a diplomatic post, again, as a sojourner with him on a journey in which you are allowed to write the Word of God, which is inspired by every breath you take, as that very act of God in a private journal. If you wish to express it, then you can use these devices to then broadcast it publicly as your opinion. In this regard, and without prejudice to the designation obligations contained in Article 2, designated operators shall guarantee the continued fulfillment of their obligations under the Convention and be fully responsible for all their relations with other designated operators and with the International Bureau. And the International Bureau is headed by a Director General. This is the international level. If you're not successful at the federal level with the U.S. courts through the Postal Service, now you go through the UPU and the Director General of the International Bureau and the Federal Chancellor of the Swiss Confederation and the International Bank of Settlements with the International Parliamentary Union. That's the upper court systems. That's who makes all those contracts in trust through the Global Postal Trust Services. It's all about debt and credit. Quit issuing debt and come forth as the true, obvious, and patent creditors. Article 2 of that Constitution says, in alignment, the aim of the Union shall be to secure the organization and improvement of the postal services and to promote in this sphere the development of international collaboration. Lab oration. Are you familiar with the label? Lab L, lab oration. What is your God speaking? What are you speaking as an L? What are you speaking as your own authority? Is it being collected in a lab? It's your oration. Think about these terms, folks. The Union shall take part, as far as possible, in postal technical assistance sought by its member countries. The member country is the United States as a corporate entity, and they granted you the nationality of a United States citizen. It's in their best interest and in good faith and full faith and credit to make sure their person, a vessel of the United States, under an obligation and security of the United States, in their special maritime territorial jurisdiction, protect that person internationally according to the international collaboration. Article 2 definitions. Postal service. All international postal services. The service I provide in posting, again, is a diplomatic post, an ambassador of the word. That's it. It's not about me or where I'm at or what time it is. It's about the word, whose scope is determined and regulated by the acts of the Union. Scope. Is that like a view? The main obligations of postal services are to satisfy certain social and economic objectives of member countries. What happened to the cultural? By ensuring the collection, processing, transmission, and delivery of postal items. Now you can mark your own words down in your own private journal. That doesn't make it a postal item. What makes it a postal item is if then you take it and put it in a public forum. That means you posted it to be observed objectively. Member country. A country that fulfills the conditions of Article 3 of the Constitution. Member countries of the Union shall be countries which have membership status at the date on which the Constitution comes into force, countries admitted to membership in accordance with Article 12. Accession or admission to the Union. Any member of the United Nations may accede to the Union. Any sovereign country which is not a member of the United Nations may apply for admission as a member country of the Union. Accession or application for admission to the Union must entail the details of formal declaration of accession to the Constitution and to the obligatory acts of the Union. It shall be addressed by the government of the country concerned to the Director General of the International Bureau, as I told you earlier, who shall notify the accession or consult the member countries. You are a consultant, like I said before. They must consult you, even in an experiment, even if you do feel like a lab L or a cage, a commercial and government entity. Commercial and government entity. It's a literal acronym that says cage. That's the United States citizenship. They must consult with you. So even in a medical experiment, it is absolutely essential to have the voluntary consent of the human subject. First 10 points of the Nuremberg trial. Consult with member countries on the application for admission. You're going to make some additions to the mission they're on in peace. You're going to bring something to the table. You're not going to take anything away from it. You're going to admit that there's no controversy or dispute. You agree with freedom of transit throughout the entire territory of the Union, and I believe the entire territory of the Union is more reconciled with Psalms 121:8, where the Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore, and solidified in Leviticus 25, verse 23, the land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine. Ye are strangers and sojourners with me. 24 says, in all of the lands of your possession, ye shall grant a redemption to the land. I believe it concurs very well. And that's how I correlate it. As the case may be. Not all cases, not some cases, the case. this case, this specific case, as it applies individually and exclusively to myself and my person, identified by a name and a number, which is known as the beneficiary of record. A country which is not a member of the United Nations shall be deemed to be admitted as a member country if its application is approved by at least 2/3 of the member countries of the Union. What is done is what ought be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Again, that United States citizenship was a conference of a nationality in agreements with other members of the United Nations that agreed that this was going to apply. Member countries whose replies have not been received by the International Bureau within a period of 4 months, counting from the date of the consultation, shall be considered as having abstained. So they're basically going to give you 4 months to consult with them and express your side, whether you're a country or one of the people, which their preamble says they are wanting to communicate with. How can you communicate with the nations and the countries if you don't communicate with the people? Don't you get it? Can you hear me now? The aforementioned replies to be submitted by physical or secure electronic means to the International Bureau shall be signed by a duly authorized representative of the governmental authority of the member country concerned. Department of State, Bureau of Consular Affairs. Greetings, JG. How you doing tonight?
Yeah, what's up?
Not much. Just trying to help people learn how to enforce their right to travel everywhere. Whether you want to call it travel, sojourning, or journeying, you just have to be able to stand clear in your own mind and know that what you're doing isn't right. It's the way we're meant to live. All this commercial shit is for the person. So we get back into it and it says, for purposes of this paragraph, secure electronic means shall refer to any electronic means used for the processing, storage, and transmission of data that ensure that completeness, integrity, and confidentiality of such data are maintained during the submission of the aforementioned replies by a member country. That's taking everything into a private. It's admitting that this is all private stuff, folks. Learn how to read behind the lines. And it has to be complete, and it has to have the integrity. So it can't have errors and omissions. Omissions and errors. And it's done in private arbitration. It's still a contract, no matter how you look at it. It's in contract form. But what you got to do is bring the equal benefit, equal consideration, so nobody gets charged, and the circulation is pure credit, and it just keeps circulating. It's always there when you need it. Accession or admission. So you can admit the union. You can admit the partnership that's already created. And you can admit to its proper use, pro per, by the person. And that's where the liability remains. It's in the record. So again, it goes back to the completeness and integrity in privacy. You're not supposed to be making public issues of this in those public forums. Anywhere. Even at the international level. To membership shall be notified by the Director General of the International Bureau to the governments of the member countries. So now we have three parties communicating. You, when you communicate with them, and the United States Department of State, Bureau of Consular Affairs, they're all going to be involved, and then that's going to be circulating throughout the UN and all of those other countries. That's what gives you the credit, the data elements. Withdrawal from the Union procedure. Each member country may withdraw from the Union by notice of denunciation of the Constitution given by the government of the country concerned to the Director General, da 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 da. This right here, each member country may withdraw from the Union. And what you need to do, in my opinion, is to withdraw from the general deposit, clarify the terms and conditions. You're no longer the debtor or deemed to be the debtor. Your person was used as a debtor and creating debt, when in fact you have an agreement, a credit agreement of informed use of credit through the United States to equally use it for their benefit and your benefit, so that no person is held liable in any court. All you have to do is clarify the terms. Withdrawal from the Union shall become effective 1 year after receipt of the notice of denunciation provided for in paragraph 1 by the Director General of the International Bureau. So what we're denunciating is the official capacity to be entitled in the military functions of performing in public.
Why is it 1 year?
Because that's the general term of a contract. And a term is a length of time. Just like contract. Tract means a length of time, a span of time. And that's why it means with time. They're not supposed to be interfering with that private contract to make a public issue of anything. All of those public issues are creating false securities by converting private privity in contract. Even if they thought we were contracting officers, it's violating the privity of a contract. So withdrawal from the Union, you give a denunciation of the capacity of being in office of entitlement. You never took such oath. You never made a statement of intent. The intent is not there. Like you said earlier, if there's no intent, then it's not supposed to be implied. If you were not intended to be in debt, you wouldn't have implied it. Now that you know better, I hope you know how to imply that you're the creditor. That's one of the most important things you can learn. And that receipt, those are all those commercial receipts in person. And look at them again. They're going to say debit, United States debit. I don't care if you're using a credit card or a debit card. I don't care if you owe cash. They might say cash tendered. But if you use any kind of card or check, it's going to say U.S. debit on that receipt. Organization of the Union, still with the Constitution, is bodies of the Union. The Union's bodies shall be Congress, the Council of Administration, the Postal Operations Council, and the International Bureau. That's your union. Shall be Congress, Council of Administration, the Postal Operations Council, and the International Bureau. The union's permanent bodies shall be the Council of Administration, the Postal Operations Council, and the International Bureau, while the Congress changes because the nations vote in new leaders every so often. Congress shall be the supreme body of the Union. That's why the Congress and the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land, based on common law, which is contract. And contract, common law, was merged with equity because in the contracts, they're bound rigid sometimes, and sometimes there are mistakes, and that is the door to equity. There are errors. There are things that were omitted and need to be restated. In that restating, they need to be repositioned, so taken from a general deposit and then restated for a special deposit. Congress shall consist of the representatives of member countries. They're talking about the Postal Congress. And what I just said shall consist of the representatives of member countries. Just like the Congress of the United States changes. It's made up of representatives of the states, the senators and representatives. Extraordinary Congress. Extra ordination. An extraordinary Congress may be convened at the request or with the consent of at least 2/3 of the member countries of the Union. That's their quorum, just like the United States has a quorum.
Now, the extraordinary, are they the transgender Congress?
You could say that, I would imagine. I mean, I don't get how this stuff, how people think this stuff really is going to work for them. When we consistently end up, like I said earlier, repeating history, and we end up with plastic straws in paper wraps and exchanging them for paper straws and plastic wraps while ignoring the entire aptitude of the entire situation in whole, which is the plastic cup and the plastic lid that you stuff the damn straw in to begin with. It's just amazing. Article 17, Council of Administration shall ensure the continuity of the work of the Union in accordance with the provisions of the Acts of the Union. Members of the Council of Administration should carry out their functions in the name and in the interests of the Union. That's a copyright, trademark, trade name. It's a labor union. Postal Operations Council shall be responsible for all operational, commercial, technical, and economic questions concerning the Postal Service. Members of the Postal Operations Council shall carry out their functions in the name and interest of the Union. Again, Article 19, International Bureau, a central office operating at the seat of the Union under the title of International Bureau of the Universal Postal Union, directed by a Director General and placed under control of the Council of Administration. Serve as an organ of execution, support, liaison, information, and consultation. Very succinct terms at the international level that trickle all the way down. Execute your living will in support of the living word, not by being a lying son, but giving true formation of the dust to the ground and acting with every breath as an act of God, as if though you communicate with God, so that every word is that of God.
Keith, what are some usual problems people have with the POC?
With the what? POC?
Yeah.
The Postal Congress, you mean? What do you mean by POC?
Pull that up again. Postal Operations Council.
Oh, okay, yeah. Postal Operations Council. Well, it's all about postal, first of all. Remember, anything you're going to post, what they're talking about here is something in the public. Operations is a military thing, so it's a military posting. It's a charge. That's why they get it all from. It's all symbolic. Beginning of the war, they would say da 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 charge. It's a military operation to charge. Counsel, and that's if you're going to seek counsel through person. You're going to be a commercial charge. So I seek counsel in the word of truth through our Father in heaven. That's the first counsel I go to. I'm going to check the words. I'm not going to check the man. I'm not going to check the living soul. I'm going to check the words, and I'm going to check their actions. If they match, then I'm going to determine whether those actions and words are good or bad, positive, negative, detriment, or benefit.
Have you've communicated with the Postal Operations Council?
Not yet. Just the
No.
not just the Board of Governors and the Office of Inspector General.
All right.
But they're getting used to me. Hopefully we'll have some resolve here pretty soon. They know that I know about this credit thing, and that they're the judicial office department that makes those credit decisions, and they're supposed to match up with the general ledger. And now when you have a enterprise payment system account with this and set up as a special deposit, now you have a special ledger versus a general ledger, and everything's got to coincide as an equal station. So therefore you can't issue debt instruments that's going to cause a debt on one side. You've got to help circulate credit so it goes back and forth. That's what a true peace treaty is. It goes back and forth constantly, making sure that we work together. And with that, we're at the end. We're an hour, and I want to keep them short, so we'll be back again tomorrow night with part 3. We'll go back to the convention to show you how that's going to correlate with all this stuff in the Constitution. And remember, the Constitution is a set of the articles, and in that you can see they break it down and show you different sections and clauses. And that's the way things work. They trickle down as a contract form in a trust. And once you get down to the bottom, you're able to amend that stuff at the bottom for your own benefit so that it goes up and comes back down. That's the circulation. Whether you look at it as up and down or back and forth, it's the circulation. So what you put out comes back. All scriptural. You got anything before we leave, JG?
I really just came up to listen, but it's the words, man, that makes it difficult. All these different words, just trying to comprehend everything fast. You got it all down because of time and experience, but it is pretty difficult to
right. And when I say
calculate all this stuff off the top of your head real quick.
Right. When I say you got to unlearn things so you can relearn, that's actually part of the process. Because when you start thinking about all the words you've been using throughout your life, if you just unlearn them because you learned them by definition and then relearn by the meaning, the definition is the letter of the law, the meaning is the intent of the law, the spirit of the law, spirit of the word, and the manualness of the word. So you always get the spiritual credit or the manual credits off of its source, the spiritual credit. So if you're going to be putting out debt, that tells us that's why you're so interested in that credit score and not paying attention to what is really debt. Whose is it and why? Once you learn this stuff, you realize that you're the creditor and that everything you put out there, if you learn how to put it out in the positive sense, it'll come back to you. That positive sense, if you go back and look at these videos here lately, you'll see consultant, all kinds of like terms, but they're all simple terms and they repeat themselves. Stay away from everything else. Learn how that works and operates through the trust. You're the third party. You're the first party. The beneficiary is the second party in between. Think about this stuff. You're playing different parts at different times.
The first party would be my parents, right? Like Steve was saying?
Right, as a grantor, and they made you grantee. So you would still be a first party, but in that grantee, you now have the ability to grant to your son, which would be a benefactor, through a beneficiary document.
Yeah.
And therefore, you would assign maybe something in escrow to a third party that would be a trustee to hold that property in case you pass on, but your living will stands. It's just a matter of covering your ass in private documentation. And it all works the same way as contracts. So it's just a matter of learning how to contract in private while under a private, unincorporated association. You have all kinds of people that operate or act in private, conduct their own affairs in private, and you can contract privately with them. No third-party interference, no taxes, no insurance, just between the two. So with that, we are out, and I want everybody to remember, I love you. I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And the point there is, I don't care if you hate me. Someday you may love me. In the meantime, may God bless you and have a great night. Bye now.
Yo, Keith, where is this? Where'd you shoot this?
This is New Hampshire, White Mountain.
Place to kill yourself.